Clerk. The question is that the document be noted. I call the member for Higgins.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. In recent, I rise to recommend the handing down of a very important report called From Rubbish to Resources, Building a Circular Economy. In recent decades, Mr Deputy Speaker, Australians have made leaps and bounds in understanding, educating and actioning recycling principles and consciously working to make sustainable choices in our daily lives. Any Member of Parliament knows this when they go to a local school, how great kids are at recycling and getting on board with this issue. However, there's still much work to be done. Currently, just over half of our waste is recycled. We can do better, and as a nation, we want to do better. Going forward, we need to have a more efficient, effective and sustainable way of dealing with the rubbish we create. It's good for customers, but it's also good for the planet. This requires a rethink of the way we think of material management as cyclical, not linear. This requires a complete shift in the mindset of waste. In fact, not seeing waste as waste at all, but more as a resource that can be used again and again and again. Hence the name of this important report, From Rubbish to Resources. The Standing Committee on Industry, Innovation, Science and Resources, on which I sit, has considered this dilemma and handed down some important recommendations in our report titled From Rubbish to Resources, Building a Circular Economy. And I encourage all members of Parliament to read this important report. Mr Deputy Speaker, achieving a circular economy will require a coordinated and national approach. This will require the Commonwealth Government to work with our state and territory counterparts to develop a pathway to a national circular economy, with consideration for, firstly, the design and composition of products that allow better recycling, and two, regulation and incentives to encourage recycling. A national approach will be required, particularly for things like transport and infrastructure, to manage waste across the states and territory borders. In fact, we heard during the inquiry of businesses that were shipping waste across jurisdictions to take advantage of non-standardised government incentives. It's very important that we work together as a country on this important issue. The National Waste Policy Action Plan should be updated to include this issue. Further, Mr Deputy Speaker, waste management and resource recovery is a serious intergovernmental priority, and that is why it should also be included as a standing agenda on the National Federation Reform Council's agenda. Mr Deputy Speaker, accountability and transparency will be key to achieving a national circular economy. The Rubbish and Resources Report recommends that the Minister responsible report annually to Parliament on the progress of the targets and actions set out in the National Policy Action Plan 2019. Likewise, recipients of Commonwealth Waste and Recycling funding should be required to report on their outcomes as a result of the funding, so we can track what is working and what is not. This is, of course, the most important thing when you give out funding, to make sure people are transparent and accountable about the way they spend it. Mr Deputy Speaker, it is no secret that making it easy to recycle will make it easier to achieve a national circular economy. This will involve working with states and territory governments to improve container deposit facilities and collection points, and that was something that was clear in our inquiry, that these sorts of successful initiatives should be shared across the different states. This should also be alongside good public education and awareness campaigns that emphasise avoiding waste, the impact of waste, and how consumers can better manage it. Like Norm's Life Be In It advertising campaigns of my childhood, we really want to have campaigns for kids of today with messages such as trash is treasure. Mr Deputy Speaker, technology, not taxes, are key to meeting and beating our international climate change goals. Innovating our waste management and the recycling industry supports these goals. As the Prime Minister has said, it's our waste, it's our responsibility. But we can go further. Energy from waste is the treatment of residual waste to harness energy from material that otherwise would go to landfill. The energy created by either thermally processing waste at high temperatures or using heat to make steam, or by digesting the organic material to produce gas, can be used for fuel, electricity generation or heat. And again, the inquiry heard some amazing technologies that we're innovating in this space, and we know that this is happening right around the world. During this inquiry, we heard how small and large-scale anaerobic digestance technology is being developed across Australia and makes a meaningful contribution to resource recovery and renewable energy generation. Mr Deputy Speaker, right here, that is the way of the future. We should work with state and territory governments to ensure national consistency across planning, approval and operational processes to support this exciting and promising work. Mr Deputy Speaker, as a medical professional, I know the massive amount of waste that hospitals, clinical practices and medical facilities produce. In the past, this was key for infection control. However, it is clear now that we should undertake further research into improving waste management and resource recovery in the medical sector. The inquiry heard of the massive amounts of waste that are occurring in hospitals right around the country, but of the desire of medical practitioners and medical administrators to do something proactive about this. And there were many pilot trials that are being undertaken, and we heard from many of those who are working in this exciting area, and I really commend those people who are taking the initiative in this way. One aspect of this could involve establishing units similar to the National Health System, England's Sustainable Development Unit to harmonise Commonwealth, state and territory regulation, as we've heard during the inquiry. Mr Deputy Speaker, waste and recycling may not be the sexiest topic under consideration in this place, but its importance, both now and in the future, cannot be understated. I actually believe there's a lot of waste warriors out there in Australia, and I know that they care about this topic deeply. As the Prime Minister said recently, it is our waste, it is our responsibility, and I do believe Australians back that in. I commend this inquiry to the House. I ask that the House take note of this important inquiry, and as a country, let's ensure we can turn our rubbish into resources to help keep our planet safe and our people prosperous. Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker.